Damien slowly opened his eyes and gasped for air. He felt disoriented and confused, trying to piece together what had happened. As his vision cleared, he noticed Cairon sitting beside him. Cairon asked how he felt, relieved to see Damien conscious. But Damien's frustration and anger boiled over, and he lunged at Cairon, catching him by the throat. Cairon struggled to break free, telling Damien to let go of his throat, but Damien's grip tightened around his throat, saying Cairon nearly killed him. Why should he let him go now? In a moment of desperation, Cairon headbutted Damien on the forehead, causing him to stumble backwards. Damien felt the world spin as he began to fall backwards. In that moment, he heard a notification alert: status effect. Your character is in critical condition. Until you have recovered your strength, your character is unable to move. Realizing that this wasn't the first time he had found himself in this situation, he thought, shit, here we go again. Damien slowly opened his eyes and saw Cairon sitting in front of him once again, asking if he was up. He winced at the pain in his head and muttered to himself about Cairon's thick skull being made of rock. Cairon asked what he had said, but Damien quickly brushed it off as nothing, knowing he couldn't afford to anger the old man any further. Damien thought to himself that Cairon may look homeless and senile, but he was incredibly strong. He knew he needed to swallow his pride and follow Cairon's lead if he wanted to survive. Cairon then asked about Damien's conversation with Lord Shaka, and Damien stumbled over his words, unsure of what to say. He eventually admitted that Lord Shaka had asked to become friends. Damien's response surprised Cairon. He explained that friendship was a relationship of brotherly affection and that Lord Shaka had internally decided that Damien should become his successor. Damien was confused and tried to ask for clarification, but Cairon interrupted him and said that he just needed to follow him from now on. Cairon laughed, and Damien wondered if it was really alright to go along with this plan. Suddenly, a notification appeared, signaling that Damien had cleared the mainstream encounter with the seventh god. Damien sighed and reassured himself that this was a good thing. Cairon motioned for Damien to take a seat, and the two of them settled down to hear what Cairon had to say. Damien couldn't help but wonder if they were going to meditate or do something spiritual. But Cairon quickly dispelled that notion and said that he wanted to talk to Damien about their upcoming plans. As Cairon began to speak, Damien's mind started to wander. He thought it was just going to be an old story, something he'd heard before. But then Cairon started to talk about the seven gods of their land. Damien was intrigued. Cairon explained that the circle of life and death was well balanced, thanks to the god of creation, Arya of light, and the god of the apocalypse, Shaka. However, one day Arya approached the other five gods, expressing her concern about Shaka's power of destruction. She suggested that they restrict it, and although there were differences in opinion, they ultimately decided to go ahead with the plan. The war between Lord Shaka and the six gods began, and it was fierce. The heavens shook, and the earth split open. It went on for a long time, and even though Lord Shaka was the god of apocalypse, he couldn't handle battling all six gods. Eventually, he was defeated, and he left everything else to his family, falling into an eternal slumber, maintaining only his divinity. The seventh god became forgotten by the people. Damien listened to Cairon as he spoke about the history of their world and the absence of Lord Shaka. He couldn't help but think that Lord Shaka's family member was the senile old man. However, as Cairon continued to speak, Damien's understanding of the situation deepened. He realized that Lord Shaka, who was the source of all darkness, was actually the pillar of balance that kept everything in place. And due to his absence, evil was created. Damien understood the gravity of the situation and the importance of what Cairon was asking of him. Cairon revealed that he had roamed the continent for thousands of years, searching for a force powerful enough to defeat Arya and the five gods and resurrect Lord Shaka. He asked Damien if he was willing to become his disciple and the sword of Lord Shaka, to defeat the six gods, including Arya of Light and their family. Damien heard the notification and realized that Cairon's wish had been activated. He was given the option to accept the quest or not. Damien's mind raced as he tried to process everything that had just been revealed to him. The forgotten seventh god, Lord Shaka, was actually the key to maintaining balance in the world. And because of his absence, the demons were born and evil had spread throughout the land. It was a daunting task, but Damien had accepted the quest to become the sword of Lord Shaka and defeat the 6 gods, including Arya of Light and their family. As he bowed down to Cairon, Damien felt a sense of determination and purpose wash over him. He had accepted the role of the agent of revenge and formed a relationship with the priest of the apocalypse. The old man's laughter echoed through the room as he welcomed Damien as his successor. With a newfound sense of purpose, Damien couldn't help but think of John Newman. But now, he saw an opportunity for revenge. Once he was done training with Cairon, he would be ready to face John Newman and bring him to justice. Cairon interrupted Damien's thoughts and announced his departure. Damien respectfully bowed and wished his master well. However, Damien suddenly realized that something was amiss and called out to Cairon. He asked if there was anything else he could teach him before leaving. Cairon responded that he had already chosen him as his disciple, and what more did he want from him? As Damien continued to express his confusion and disappointment, Cairon took out a book and handed it to Damien. He instructed Damien to refer to it whenever he needed help and to avoid seeking him out. Before Damien could react further, Cairon activated a formation and disappeared into it. Damien was left stunned and bewildered. He couldn't believe that his master had left him so abruptly without any further guidance. As he stood there in shock, he received a notification that he had been given a quest. The quest was to resurrect the god of darkness, Shaka, and defeat the 6 gods and their families who ruled the land. Damien couldn't believe what he was reading. He felt overwhelmed and unsure if he could accomplish such a monumental task alone. Damien was seething with frustration and anger. He shouted out loud, wondering how he could possibly complete the daunting quest assigned to him. He questioned whether it was even possible to clear the task. He also expressed concern about the families of the 6 gods he was supposed to defeat, especially those who had fought alongside him before, like Crimson Agnes, Siren of the Ice, Halo of the Mind, Cyrus of Steel, and Luke of the Boulder. Damien's mind was racing, and he tried to come to terms with the gravity of the situation. He knew that these families were the most powerful in the world, with abilities that were considered disaster class. Among them, the family of Arya, John Newman, the Radiant King Arthur, had obtained the infinite mana item Infinity Circle and was praised as the god of magic. Damien wondered if he could really defeat such powerful adversaries. However, as he thought about his comrades, he realized that there was no need to be scared. For some reason, he had been given the opportunity to come back in time, just when he thought it was the end. This gave him the determination he needed to face the challenge head-on. With newfound determination, Damien vowed to clear the quest assigned to him, no matter what the cost. He declared that he would put an end to the ill fate that had befallen him. Damien knew that his path would be difficult, but he was ready to face it and bring justice to those who had wronged him. The quest to resurrect Lord Shaka and defeat the 6 gods became his purpose, and he would not waver in his resolve. As Damien processed the previous notifications, he was surprised to see even more popping up. He read through them and realized that he had obtained the Apocalypse Invocation, the Book of the Black Covenant. The notifications revealed that new clauses had been added, but because of his low level, some of the clauses were deactivated. Damien found the book fascinating because it offered various abilities like returning to the village, getting an oracle's advice, examining runes, appraising items, dismantling them, combining materials, and creating new things. He was thrilled to have acquired an all-in-one multi-item, something he had heard about before. Excited, Damien opened the book and was pleased with its contents as it was a scam item with various abilities. He felt lucky and unstoppable. Curious about its capabilities, he decided to test the book's ability by starting with disassembling an item. Choosing a boar head as his material, Damien focused on the task and began the process. With determination, he synthesized and created the item. After some time, Damien excitedly exclaimed that the creation was complete. Upon inspecting the newly created item, he discovered it was a wild boar helmet, made from a giant boar head. The helmet had impressive bonuses, increasing his HP, magic power, defense, and overall stats, while also dealing extra damage to animal-type monsters. However, Damien didn't feel entirely happy about the creation of the item due to its current stats, wondering if this was the best item option he had right now. Thinking of the global game trading site, GameBank, 100 AC gold is equal to $1 and that a wild boar's head is usually worth 500,000 gold. Considering the item's value in the game's economy, Damien realized he couldn't simply create items whenever he needed money, or he might become poor. Keeping this in mind, he decided to give the leather to the village head and prioritize creating items strategically in the future. Damien went to the village head's home and handed over the leather. The village head expressed surprise, asking if Damien had caught it himself, and Damien confirmed that he did. Wearing the boar mask, Damien gave off a menacing aura as he tells the village head that he was certain it was wild boar's leather. Impressed by Damien's achievement, the village head wrote a recommendation letter, advising him to leave the island and head to the main continent. Additionally, the village head instructed Damien to go to the harbor on the eastern side of the island and take a boat to the main continent. Damien received a notification acknowledging the recommendation had been acquired. The village head hands over the recommendation letter, telling Damien to show it to the branch head of the Adventurers Guild and thank the village head for his help. Filled with purpose, Damien left the village head's house and made his way towards the harbor, ready to embark on his journey. At the harbor, Damien took a break, eating bread and checking his progress. He was a level 16 witch doctor with no affiliation and had a huge negative alignment. He held titles such as Atrocity, the one who defeated the wild boar alone, and Agent of Revenge. His stats were impressive, with high intelligence and talent. He had mastered skills like shooting poison darts, using bloody impulse, and performing zombification. He stares at the stat window knowing that he had no remaining stat or skill points and was still only level 16, he knew he still had much to accomplish. While reviewing his status, Damien pondered his Agent of Revenge title, which indicated that he was chosen by the seventh god and possessed an unknown power. The title provided significant bonuses during PvP battles, including increased attack power, defense, resistance to attributes, and resistance to status abnormalities. However, Damien was hesitant to fully utilize his title because it basically told him to become a PK player, but he didn't enjoy killing people. Damien thinks to himself that he really had joined a pseudo-religion when suddenly, Damien heard a painful scream and quickly turned his attention to the source. He saw an injured man lying on the ground, pleading for help, while a mage stood over him telling the injured man that he should have listened to the mage while he was still being nice. The mage grabs the injured man by the hair, telling him he just needed to pay and asked why he had to make it hard for the both of them. As the injured man whimpers in fear, Damien couldn't help but wonder if they were killer mages. Killer mages were powerful mages who used their overwhelming abilities in the beginning of the game to go around and PK. The killer mage continued to speak to the injured man, saying they weren't bad people and that the mood in the area had gone dark. Damien could tell that the mage was the leader of the group, as he had managed to block off the wharf with only 20 people. Despite the situation, the killer mage still tells the injured man to pay the toll so that he can leave. In the midst of the crowd, an English foreigner expressed displeasure with how things were unfolding. He grabs his sword and unsheathed it and, without warning, charged at the mage, telling him to go F himself. The English foreigner's action grabbed the attention of the mage, but despite the sudden attack, the killer mage remained calm and collected, wondering who he was as he casts a spell. He activated his energy bolt skill and launched a powerful attack at the foreigner, leaving him stunned and bewildered. With an evil smile on his face, the killer mage taunted the foreigner, telling him he can't win, and continued to bombard him with the same spell over and over again. The audience watched in horror and disbelief as the foreigner was relentlessly attacked by the mage. The attacks stopped as the mage laughs at the cooked foreigner, saying what a sight it was to see. The leader of the killer mages instructed his teammates to see off their departing guest, and all members began to cast their spells at once, smiling and laughing at what they were going to do. The mage turns around to say that there was nothing better to look at. But before he could say anything else, one of his teammates was abruptly beheaded. The killer mage and his teammates were taken aback by the sudden beheading of their comrade. Confusion and fear swept over them as they tried to make sense of the situation. One of the gang members pointed out a figure nearby wearing a distinctive boar helmet, wondering aloud if this mysterious stranger was responsible for the sudden and gruesome attack. As the group of evil mages turned their attention to the figure, they quickly realized it was indeed Damien who had beheaded their comrade. The sight of the boar helmet and the aura of menace emanating from Damien sent a chill down their spines. The leader of the killer mages tried to act tough, asking who Damien was, but his confidence quickly faded as Damien demanded payment for their lives. With a menacing expression, Damien gave the group a mere 10 seconds to pay up, warning them that it was their only chance to survive. As Damien faced the group of menacing evil mages, he sensed their intense hatred and disdain directed towards him. The leader of the group expressed disbelief and scorn, mockingly ridiculing Damien for his seemingly foolish actions. Unbeknownst to them, Damien had a well-thought-out plan in mind. With a commanding voice, he initiated a 10-second countdown that resonated clearly through the tense atmosphere. The mages grew increasingly irritated as Damien counted down, and their leader commanded them to go and kill him. The PK mages surrounded Damien just as he reaches the number 1, however, as the countdown reached 0 as Damien holds the blade, Damien vanished into thin air, leaving the mages bewildered and perplexed. The leader was quick to notice something above, telling everyone to dodge. Suddenly, a cascade of projectiles began raining down from above, causing the mages to cry out in pain and agony as Damien's deadly attack struck them. The leader was shocked to see what happened and wondered what was going on as the faces of his members started to melt in front of him. Damien appeared once again, with the bodies of the mages on the ground and blood everywhere. With his combination of skills of bloody impulse, poison darts, and corrupted elixir, he managed to beat most of them, and he knew that his title, Agent of Revenge, granted him greater damage in player-versus-player combat, and he utilized every advantage at his disposal to bring down his enemies. The leader of the evil mages could only watch in disbelief and frustration, realizing that he had grossly underestimated Damien's power. Damien approached their leader with a twisted grin, holding a corrupted elixir in his hand. He taunted the mage, questioning whether his actions had exceeded the leader's expectations. Brian slowly regained consciousness, his eyes fluttering open, and he felt a sharp pain coursing through his body. As he struggled to rise, he was surprised to find Wendy, a familiar face, standing before him. Brian called out her name and asked where they were. Wendy assisted him, helping him to his feet, and expressed concern for his well-being. Disoriented and confused, Brian struggled to recollect what had happened. Suddenly, the memories flooded back. He had been attacked by the evil mages and knocked unconscious. Anger surged within him as he remembered the assault, vowing to seek revenge upon them. As he recalled being attacked by the mages, he slams his fists hard onto the ground because of what happened. He began to yell out loud, asking her where the mages were so he could go and kill them himself. However, Wendy urged him to calm down, emphasizing that they were in the middle of a stream. Notifications began to pop up around him. It was a chat messages from his viewers. Brian's mind remained fixated on revenge as he posed a profound question to Wendy: when does a streamer truly die? Is it when they lose all their items or when they reach level 1? He answered his own query, stating that a streamer truly dies when they decide not to play anymore. Wendy wondered where his stupid mindset came from. As his determination was resolute, Brian swore to crush the evil mages and avenge his defeat. Just as they prepared themselves, a sudden explosion caught their attention, causing them to turn their heads toward the source of the commotion. To their astonishment, a group of evil mages sprinted through a hail of explosions, with Damien closely pursuing them and ruthlessly dispatching each one in turn. Damien tallied the number of enemies he had slain so far, laughing menacingly with each count. The evil mage leader observed in fear and shock as Damien displayed an unprecedented level of control and power. He commanded his teammates to cast spells and exhaust their reserve mana. The leader himself began casting spells, determined to bring down Damien. Damien, observing the group of evil mages, decided to employ his bloody impulse once again. The mages unleashed their spells simultaneously, directing a substantial amount of mana towards Damien. The attack landed in the spot where Damien had been standing, leading the evil mages to believe that they had finally struck their mark. But before the leader could finish cautioning his comrades, one of them fell to the ground, struck down by Damien's dart blower. Damien stood triumphantly amidst the chaos, grinning at the leader and the remaining mages, saying that the effect of Bloody Impulse was amazing. Witnessing this, the evil mages grew increasingly anxious. One of them expressed horror, questioning whether their opponent was truly human and if he could possibly be on the same level as them. Another mage joined the conversation, wondering how their opponent managed to dodge all their attacks without being hit even once. The leader of the group felt frustrated, realizing that if they continued on this path, they would all meet their demise. With resolve, he made a decision, barking orders to his teammates to endure for just 3 more minutes. Meanwhile, Damien observed with curiosity, pondering what plan the evil mage leader had in store. Suddenly, the leader began casting a spell, muttering under his breath that he would turn Damien into a charred skewer with lightning. On the other side, Brian sat fixated on his notification screen, his eyes darting back and forth between the flood of comments on his live stream. Perusing through the comments, he couldn't help but express his bewilderment, openly wondering where someone as audacious as Damien could have come from. Despite his doubts, Brian found himself enthusiastically cheering on the courageous fighter, urging him to continue the battle. However, his excitement was short-lived when Wendy intervened, scolding him for getting distracted and insisting that he focus on the task at hand. Brian, swept up in the moment, paid little attention to her words. Suddenly, his attention was captivated by the viewer count on his stream, which had skyrocketed to over 200,000. A surge of adrenaline coursed through him as he realized the opportunity before him. Turning to Wendy, he asked if she was ready, to which she responded with confusion. Brian gestured toward Damien, readying himself to get Damien and seized the moment to boost his own popularity. The battle between Damien and the evil mages reached its apex. One of the mages launched an energy bolt toward Damien, yet he effortlessly evaded the attack with graceful ease. Damien then shifted his focus to the leader of the evil mages, who seemed to be preparing for something significant. Curious about his opponent's intentions, Damien charged forward. The other mages, filled with fear, started to flee, unsure of what to do next. However, the leader remained resolute, shouting at his teammates to stand their ground. Having amassed sufficient mana, he was prepared to unleash his ultimate attack. With a resounding cry, he invoked the name of his spell, summoning a powerful lightning strike that enveloped the entire area surrounding Damien. As lightning fell from the heaves, the area where Damien was covered in a huge blue explosion.